Just a few years ago, David Johnson was the running back everyone wanted on their fantasy team, and he was dominating the NFL. Flash forward a few years, and the name David Johnson has almost left the vocabulary of most NFL fans. So my question is, what happened to him, and can he save his career in Houston? In today's video, we're going to look back at the rise and fall of star running back David Johnson, and if we can expect him to have a big 2020 year. But first, if you are new to the channel, I make videos about football, and if you're watching this, then I know you're a football fan, so why not take a quick moment and hit that subscribe button for me. If you enjoy my content, be sure to smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and drop a video suggestion in the comment section. It'll really help my channel grow, and I really appreciate it. Also be sure to turn on post notifications so you never miss another upload. Now let's get started with the rise and fall of David Johnson. I know David Johnson hasn't nearly fallen off as hard as some other NFL players, so I don't mean to try and be negative, but I do want to shed light on his story, his prime playing days, and what led to his ultimate downfall. So now let's go way back to the start with how David became a star. David Johnson was born in Memphis, Tennessee, but moved to the eastern Iowa town of Clinton when he got a little bit older. He excelled at sports from a very young age, and everyone knew he was going to be something special. He ran both track and field and played both football and basketball at Clinton High School. Basically, he was an athletic star there. On the football field, he rushed for 4,682 yards and 49 touchdowns, while also catching 1,734 yards and 14 touchdowns as a 4-year starter. Clearly, he was a talented kid, but he was receiving little to no interest on the recruiting trail. He was the 2-time All-State caliber sprinter and made All-Conference for basketball, so obviously, he was an insane athlete. But colleges for some reason didn't want him. His only 2 offers at a high school were in Northern Iowa, the local school, and Illinois State. When it came time to pick a school, he wanted to stay close to home, and he chose to be a Northern Iowa Panther. Believe it or not, Iowa had actually offered Johnson the option to gray shirt, meaning he would have to pay full tuition on his own for a year, and then he would receive a scholarship his sophomore year. But as we know, he declined that opportunity as he felt a little bit disrespected. Northern Iowa has lost its fair share worth of players to the Iowa Hawkeyes, including some kids who would end up making it to the NFL. As a small school, you can find a gem, but the moment they get a call from their school, that player is typically gone. Thankfully, that wasn't the case for David Johnson, and he was going to be a huge factor for UNI. When he arrived, him and the coaching staff agreed that it was going to be best for him to redshirt his freshman year, and that's exactly what he did. Going into the 2011 season, David was expected to play a decent amount, and he actually got to appear in all 13 games, starting in 5 of them. His first career game was against Iowa State, a team who didn't look at him, and they narrowly lost by just 1 point. He helped lead the Panthers to a 10-3 record. As a freshman, he rushed for 822 yards and 9 touchdowns, while also catching 33 passes for 422 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a really solid first year, and he was expected to break out into a star. As a sophomore, he had huge career days against both Wisconsin and Iowa, and made them pay for not recruiting him. David rushed for 1,021 yards and 13 touchdowns, with 5 more touchdowns in the receiving department, but it didn't lead to much team success. The Panthers went 5-6 that year, a down year compared to the program's standards. As a junior, David got to start out the year on a high note, as he helped the Panthers upset Iowa State in Ames. Johnson would go on to rush for 1,286 yards and 10 touchdowns, with 4 more in the receiving department. He helped lead the Panthers to a 7-5 record, and David had become one of the best running backs in FCS football. As a senior, the Panthers got to travel to Iowa for their Week 1 matchup, and they lost a close 1-possession game. From there, he would go on a tear, as he would rush for 1,553 yards with 17 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns. Even better, he helped lead UNI back to the FCS playoffs, where they won their first-round matchup against Stephen F. Austin, but then lost to his other offer coming out of high school, Illinois State, in the second round. By the time he had left UNI, he had established a school record for rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and career all-purpose yards. He was an FCS All-American, and he was expected to be drafted into the NFL. After a terrific pro day and NFL Combine performance, David was expected to climb as high as the 2nd or 3rd round in the 2015 NFL Draft. A school like Iowa runs a heavy ground attack, and I can only imagine how good he would have been behind some of those Hawkeye offensive lines. I bet Kirk Ferentz regrets missing out on him, but I'm happy he got to tear it up at the FCS level and make a name for himself. Johnson's NFL dreams came true as he was selected with the 86th overall pick in the 3rd round by the Arizona Cardinals. Originally, the Cardinals wanted to draft Nebraska's Amir Abdullah, but the Lions snagged him up, and they ended up going for Johnson instead. Needing a running back to replace Andre Ellington, Johnson was expected to step in and play for the starting job from day one. The odds an FCS running back would become a starter in the NFL are astronomically low, but he made it happen. David Johnson came into the Cardinals organization with a ton of hype, and he was expected to play immediately. In his first career game against the Saints, he caught a touchdown on his first career reception, and he rushed for his first career touchdown the following week against the Bears. From there, he would go on to put up modest results until their game against the Eagles. In that game, Johnson broke out as he rushed the ball 29 times for 187 yards and 3 touchdowns in their dominating blowout win. This was his best game of the regular season, and the Cardinals were good enough to make the playoffs. They beat the Packers in overtime in their first round game, and then had to face the Carolina in the NFC Championship game. He rushed for his first career playoff touchdown, but it wasn't enough as they ended up losing to the Panthers in a blowout fashion. As a rookie, David put up solid numbers. He rushed for 581 yards and 8 touchdowns, with 4 more in the receiving game. He was a good young back, but no one expected what was about to come next. Going into 2016, David Johnson was expected to have a breakout year, and that is exactly what he would do. Through his first 4 games, he averaged 15 to 20 carries a night and was putting up about 80 yards a game. Not bad, but not enough to be considered a star. It really all began when he had 157 yards and 2 touchdowns against the 49ers, then it was 111 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Jets, and 113 yards against the Seahawks. That was the rushing part of his tear, then he started to add another element to his game. Through his next 4 games after that, he rushed for 3 touchdowns and also caught 4 touchdowns. He was a dynamic weapon that everyone wanted on their fantasy team, and he was helping the Cardinals win games. He didn't cool off to end the regular season either, as he rushed for 5 touchdowns in his last 4 games. Unfortunately, David's big year didn't amount to that much, as the Cardinals would end up missing the playoffs, and he wasn't able to showcase his skills in the postseason like he did last year. In their final regular season game, David got injured and it actually looked pretty bad, but thankfully, it was only an MCL sprain. Johnson was a first-team All-Pro selection and a Pro Bowler that year. He was expected to step up in 2016, but no one expected the kind of sophomore year that he had. On the year, he rushed for 1,239 yards and 16 touchdowns, with 4 more coming in the receiving department. Johnson had become a bright young NFL superstar, but would he be able to sustain or build upon his success? Going into his 3rd year in the league, there were big expectations placed on his shoulders, and the Cardinals were expected to get back to the playoffs. Well, unfortunately, that didn't go to plan, as only 11 carries into the 2017 season, the narrative of the year changed significantly as David went down with a serious injury. He ended up dislocating his wrist, and he was ruled out for the remainder of the season. This was not only a huge blow to the Cardinals, this is the kind of injury that could also affect his football career. After a year of recovery, David was ready to get back on the field for the 2018 season. In their Week 1 opener, David looked like his old self as he scored a rushing touchdown against the Redskins. Besides his 2-touchdown game against the Niners and 137 yards versus the Raiders, David really struggled, and he looked like a completely different player at times. His yards per carry average took a dip, as he was only now averaging 3.6 yards per carry. That may not sound that bad, but the NFL average that year was 4.2, and that would mean Johnson went from the best running back in the NFL in 2016 to a below average one in just 2 years. He still managed to rush for 940 yards and 7 touchdowns, but he just wasn't the same player he was 2 years ago. Going into the 2019 season, David was given another chance to prove he could produce at a high level. He showed out in their Week 1 game with 82 rushing yards and 6 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. Maybe he was going back to his original form, some thought. I wish I could say that's the case, but it's not. He rushed for more than 40 yards one time the rest of the year, and his role with the team diminished by the week. Kenyon Drake became the main running back, and Chase Edmonds proved he was a reliable backup. David missed the final 2 games of the regular season with an ankle injury, and that just seemed to be the icing on the cake for him. After a good Week 1 performance, he only managed to rush for 345 yards and 2 touchdowns on the whole entire year. After becoming an All-Pro back in 2016, David Johnson struggled with both injuries and the mental game of football. He must have put a ton of pressure on himself, and he probably felt the weight of the world on his chest every time he played. Because of everything that had happened, the Cardinals decided to trade Johnson and some picks to the Texans in exchange for DeAndre Hopkins and a 4th-round pick. I'm no NFL expert by any means, but that seems like a very stupid trade for the Texans to agree on. But hey, it'll help my Indianapolis Colts out in the AFC South. With Duke Johnson already on the roster, David will have a chance to gain some of his confidence back and hopefully carve out a decent role with the team. I really do hope the best for David in 2020, and I want to see him succeed on the football field again. I'm not really sure what to make of his NFL career, but his story is pretty incredible, and I'm glad I got a chance to tell it to you guys. Do you guys think that David Johnson is a one-year wonder, or or do you think he will bounce back in 2020? Let me know your answer to that in the comment section down below, and also let me know who I should do next. If you want David to succeed on the football field, or you want to help my channel grow, or maybe even both, go ahead and smash that like button, and let's see if we can hit 50 likes today. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe before you go, and if you're a Cardinals fan, check out my most recent video about the rise of Hakeem Butler, and all my other NFL player videos. Until next time though, peace.